Hey everybody, welcome back to Pieces of Past. I'm Allie Edwards, and this week I have been working through a series of prompts in our Pieces of the Past notebook. Absolutely don't have to have the notebook to follow along with the prompts to tell pieces of your own story. Quick review here. Started off with family of origin, then we've got most loved toy, then we had an adventure, a childhood adventure. Yesterday was education, and I had fun playing around with some film strips here. And then today is best childhood memory. And as I was thinking back myself on my own childhood and growing up, one of my most favorite general memories is how much time we spent swimming. And swimming was a huge piece of growing up for me. From recreational swimming to competitive swimming, I have always loved being in the water. I found lots of pictures of myself in the pool, the local pool that we spent a ton of time at. Also, again, in rivers, oceans, any place there's water. Like, I love to be in the water. And we spent many years of our growing up time at this particular pool. This was a country club pool called Twin Lakes Country Club in Federal Way, Washington. And from the time I was probably, I think in this picture I was like 7, from the time I was 7 until even when I was in college, I swam on a swim team here in the summer and spent almost every day there. Like, it was just something, especially as we got older, it was just what we did. Like, we went there in the morning for swim team practice. We stayed at a certain point. I stayed and I taught lessons, and then I lifeguarded and until 8 o'clock at night. Like, we were there from 6 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. And it was just a huge piece of my growing up, a really big place for me particular, and just the swimming related aspect too. So I printed out just a couple pictures. I had a couple. This was from, I think, the first year that we moved to Federal Way, and so it would have been one of the first years that I was participating on the swim team. I was always a helper. I was like, oh, how can I be involved? How can I participate in this, helping the coaches take the mats off the pool, stuff like that. So I have a couple different photos. I thought about making this one a full page photo and continuing on with my full pages of photos here, as you've seen in some of these, which I really like. But I'm also considering that I will add one photo here, or maybe 2 photos, or one. I'm not sure yet. I have both of these, and so I would like to include both of them in some way, so I kind of want to figure that out. The other thing that I was thinking about doing, and when I started here, was creating a repeated pattern that would go over on this side. One thing that I might do is make this more of a block, have a photo here, a photo here. I'll probably make this one a little bit longer. Something like this that would be, and then have my stamping there and then my journaling over here. I haven't really done that for one of these spreads yet, so that might be a fun thing to try. I think I need to decide. I think I'd probably make this one a little bit bigger, maybe come up to the bottom here. So I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll reprint this one so that it's a little bit taller, and then still do the pattern that can go up above there, and probably put some kind of embellishment up there. So using my stamps to create a custom pattern. That looks like it's about 4 1/4 tall. So I need to do 4 1/4 wide by 4 1/4 tall. So I'm gonna go reprint this one. Then I'm gonna keep doing my custom pattern that I'm going to create here that will get adhered up there. This time I am just going to leave all 4 of the letters on here. We talked about this earlier this week, of where I oftentimes will just do individual letters, but with this one where I'm going to be doing the same word over and over again, I think this will make more sense for the direction that I'm heading on this one.
All right, so the first step in this one was simply to create that pattern with the word swim. Again, I'm using Tim Holtz Scattered Straw ink. That's one I've been using in this project all throughout the prompts, and I'm just essentially setting up something that I can cut out, right? Creating a custom text-based pattern that can be cut out and added into the notebook. I'm just doing this on regular copy paper. Again, feeling like that's going to be just fine for what I'm working on here, and starting to trim that down where it can fit in that upper quadrant. Next step then was starting to trim a couple of my photos here, the 2 photos that I had picked out. And as you'll see in the end, the direction that I started going in isn't where I end up, but you're going to get to see that whole process.
All right, I went over and started my journaling and ended up that I had a lot to say. And so I love you know, it's one of those things, the difference between handwriting often for me and typing. Typing, almost always I end up in a longer, more complete story. And so for me, it just kind of depends on what do I feel like on any particular day, right? You know, like even yesterday I could have written a whole bunch more about that, and there'll be another time for that, or hopefully there'll be another time for that. That's why I said at one point here, I think in the beginning of that, you know, not any one of these stories has to be the be all end all story of your childhood or whatever, but it's a good opportunity to get some thoughts and feelings down. And so I ended up with 2 pages, and so what that is going to mean to me, I think, is that I got a couple different options. One is I could redo this guy, the swim guy, and have that be longer, have this end up being a flat page like I've done before, which would mean that journaling would go here and here, and then I could have my second photo on this side, right? That would be the flip open. I think that's probably what I am gonna end up doing. So I'll restamp that, but I did want you guys to see in case you hadn't seen that kind of thing. I guess I could see if I have another photo too. Let's see if I cut it and see how does this, we'll just test it out.
All right, so I grabbed my scissors and went ahead and trimmed this in half like you've seen me do on some of the other days there. In the end, I don't end up using this, and it gets adhered down to the page behind, but this is definitely a opportunity to see a different way that you could do it, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I like to leave all of this in for you guys, is to be able to see different options. And I talk through different options, right? Of different places that you could place your content, and the reminder that there isn't a right or a wrong in this, right? It's not right for me to include my journaling right there or my photo in a specific space. It's just a choice. And there's lots of different choices that we get to make, and these notebooks seem to be especially fun for that, in my personal opinion, especially for a specific project like this. So right now I'm still kind of thinking through, where do I want these things to go? Oh, and now I'm like, oh, what if I did the full page? Oh, what would that look like? This is where I'm starting to consider that as an option.
Okay, so obviously I'm testing out a couple different ideas here, which might be just looking at doing something different. Like, as I noticed, yes, these could be 2 pages, but it could also just be one long thing along here. So I reprinted it out just so I could see what that looks like, and then we'll go from there. So one of the things that I love about notebooks, and specifically like a notebook like this where it has these kind of quadrants, right? Not just spaces for content, is that you can mix and match. And I think that that's one of the fun things about building a little project like this, is that you can switch things up, and you can have your journaling on, you know, the long side, or your photo on the long side, or a pattern paper there. It just gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you might want to put it together based on how long is your story, how many photos do you have, you know, what do you feel like adding on there today? So that's super fun. Okay, so even though I cut this flap here, one of the things obviously is I can just adhere it to this second page, so I don't have to have it be a flap if I don't want to. And I think that that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing, is just having it be like this and then cut out, and then I just won't use this additional photo. So sometimes I use all of them, sometimes I don't, right? Those are kind of those options that come to you as you are working on projects. Kind of thinking though I might get rid of this line along the bottom. That's part of the pool. Let's see what happens. It might be really close when I cut it out, so let's see. Yeah, it's a little annoying, but I'm just gonna leave it. You could also, I could put a piece of washi tape or something on there, but I think it's gonna be just fine.
One of the things I used a lot more today as I was trimming things out, and I cut out some of the trimming from this video just because there's a lot of trimming, is using an X-Acto knife. And some of you guys that were participating in our subscriber day last weekend might have seen me find a bunch of new blades for that knife, and I was really excited because it just happened to be something that I had. And so that's, having a sharp blade on there makes a totally makes a difference. And anyway, it's a nice option to be able to get into some of the smaller sections of a notebook like this. And here you can see I'm still considering, do I want to have a flap? Do I not want to have a flap? In the end, I don't have a flap, and I just go with having the pattern there. And then I'm considering a bunch of different embellishments that I could add on there. I got a few butterflies, a token from Tim Holtz. I end up picking a yellow puffy sticker that was from a recent add-on, I think. So just adding that on there. That obviously is coming from my stash organization. I like the yellow. It was fine. Any one of those would have been fine. The butterfly would have been fine. You know, it's really, again, just what feels good to you today. What feels good today? Is it, you know, the color? Is it the shape? Is it the sentiment that's on the embellishment? All those kinds of things. Part of choosing our own adventure in memory keeping. So I'm adding on my some adhesive there. You saw that I also adhered the back of the page to the next page. So I'm all set for tomorrow's journaling, which is about a challenging chapter. So challenging childhood chapter. So I'm actually kind of excited about how I'm going to decide to document something like that. I've been thinking a lot about that this week as we've gotten closer to that one. So going ahead in, you can see, again, doing lots of trimming things down, using the corner rounder, getting it all set up. In the end, it's a super simple page, right? With that full page of journaling, a custom stamped pattern, which you could easily use pattern paper, and an embellishment on top with one photo on the bottom, and then a couple chipboard stars added on here as well. All right, guys, let me know if you have questions in the comments below, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.